Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into the story. Have you ever felt that kind of emptiness, where you're surrounded by people, yet you feel so alone? Or maybe you've been in a situation where someone, completely unexpectedly, turned your whole world upside down. Well, today's story is exactly that, a moment of pure, accidental connection that changes everything. Stay tuned. The next morning, Emma woke up with a heavy heart. She couldn't stop thinking about the man she'd met the night before. Liam Parker. The name still felt foreign on her lips, but something about him had caught her attention, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their brief encounter wasn't just some random mistake. She had been so embarrassed when she realized she'd sat at the wrong table, and running out of that restaurant like a fool had felt like the final nail in the coffin. But the thought of Liam's smile, the way he had looked at her with curiosity and kindness, made her wonder if she had missed something. Maybe it hadn't been a mistake after all. She sighed, pushing herself out of bed and trying to focus on the day ahead. She had work, bills to pay, and not a lot of time to dwell on what ifs. But as she glanced at the clock, her phone buzzed with a message. "Hey, Emma, it's Liam. I know last night was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe." Emma froze for a second, her thumb hovering over the screen. Was this real? Had he really sent her a message? She stared at the text, her thoughts racing. Was it really him? Or was this some cruel joke? But then, she remembered his smile, his warmth, and the way he had listened to her ramble on about her life. Maybe this was a chance to redeem herself, to actually get to know him, and maybe, just maybe, to see if there was something more there. She hesitated for a moment longer before typing a quick response. Sure, coffee sounds nice. Her heart was pounding in her chest as she hit send. She wasn't sure what she was expecting, but the idea of seeing him again made her feel nervous and excited at the same time. Later that day, they met at a small coffee shop downtown, a cozy little place tucked away from the chaos of the city. When Emma walked in, she spotted Liam immediately. He was sitting at a corner table, wearing a casual grey sweater and jeans. He looked completely different from the sharp, businesslike persona she had imagined. He smiled when he saw her, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. He stood up as she approached. "Hi," he said, his voice warm and genuine. "Thanks for meeting me again." "No problem," Emma replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I figured I owed you an apology for running out like that." Liam chuckled softly. "Honestly, it's no big deal. I was just glad to meet someone who wasn't just focused on, well, you know, appearances." Emma laughed, feeling a bit more at ease. They sat down, and the conversation flowed easily from there. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and their struggles. Emma found herself opening up more than she had in a long time, and for the first time in ages, she felt like someone was really listening. It felt real, not forced. Liam asked her about her art, about the sketches she had mentioned the night before, and Emma found herself telling him about her dreams of one day opening her own art studio. "You've got talent," Liam said, his voice full of sincerity. "I can tell you're passionate about it." Emma smiled, feeling a rush of warmth. "Thanks. I don't know if I'll ever be able to make it happen, though." Liam shook his head, leaning forward slightly. "You never know unless you try. I've seen people do amazing things when they believe in themselves. You just need someone to believe in you, too." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. There was something in his eyes, something that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could do it. They spent the next hour talking, laughing, and getting to know each other better. By the time they finished their coffee, Emma felt like she had known Liam for years. She was surprised by how easy it was to be around him, how natural the conversation felt. But she also couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of her mind. Who was Liam really? Was he just another rich guy with nothing better to do than help people like her? Or was there more to him than that? As they stood to leave, Liam hesitated for a moment, then looked at her with a thoughtful expression. You know, he said, there's something about you. You're different from anyone I've met in a long time. I'm glad we got to meet. Emma smiled, her heart warming. I'm glad too. Thanks for inviting me out. Liam's eye sparkled. Well, if you ever want to talk more, or if you need a friend, don't hesitate to call. Emma felt a flutter in her chest at the sincerity in his voice. As they said goodbye and went their separate ways, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of possibility she hadn't felt in years. Could this be the beginning of something new? Something more than just a random mistake? She wasn't sure yet, but one thing was clear, her life had just taken a turn she hadn't seen coming. The following week, Emma found herself thinking about Liam more and more. She had never expected their coffee date to leave such an impact on her, but here she was, replaying every word, every laugh, in her head. He had been kind, sincere, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like someone saw her for who she really was. But as much as she wanted to ignore it, a nagging thought kept creeping in, who exactly was Liam Parker? He was unlike anyone she had ever met, and she couldn't help but wonder if he was hiding something. But she couldn't let herself get too caught up in that. After all, it was just one coffee date, right? She shook off the thoughts as she walked into work that morning, trying to focus on the tasks ahead. Her shift at the diner was busy, and she needed to keep her mind occupied. It wasn't long before her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at it, her heart skipping a beat when she saw the message. Hey Emma, I was thinking about you. I have an event coming up, a charity gala. It's for underprivileged artists, and I'd love for you to be my guest. What do you think? It was from Liam. Her breath caught in her throat. A charity gala? It sounded so fancy, so out of her league. But at the same time, it felt like an opportunity she couldn't pass up. She hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering over her phone screen. She wasn't sure if she should go or not. It felt like stepping into a world that wasn't hers, a world of wealth and influence that she had always been on the outside of. But Liam had been kind, and he had given her the confidence to dream bigger than she ever had before. Maybe this was her chance to take that first step. She typed a quick response. That sounds amazing, Liam. I'd love to go. The moment she sent it, she felt a wave of nervousness wash over her. Was she making the right decision? Was she ready for something like this? She wasn't sure, but she knew she couldn't let fear hold her back. As the night of the gala approached, Emma found herself in front of her small mirror, staring at the dress she had borrowed from her friend Jenny. It was the nicest dress she owned, but compared to the designer gown she imagined she would see at the event, it felt like nothing. Still, she knew she had to make it work. She carefully applied a bit of makeup, fixing her hair as best as she could. She wasn't used to this kind of attention, but tonight, she would have to step out of her comfort zone. As she arrived at the venue, her heart raced. The gala was being held at a luxurious hotel downtown, a building so grand it looked like something out of a movie. She took a deep breath before stepping inside, her heels clicking against the marble floors as she walked through the ornate entrance. She could feel the eyes on her, and her nerves flared up once again. The people around her were dressed to the nines, their laughter and chatter echoing through the room. She felt completely out of place. But then, she spotted him. Liam was standing by the bar, talking to a group of people, but the moment he saw her, his eyes lit up, and he excused himself from the conversation. He walked toward her with that warm smile she had come to know. Emma, he said, his voice full of warmth. You look stunning. Emma felt her cheeks flash as she smiled back. Thanks, Liam. You clean up pretty well yourself. He laughed, and the tension in her shoulders began to ease. It was as if everything else in the room faded away, and it was just the two of them. They talked for a while, and Emma was surprised by how comfortable she felt around him. It didn't matter that they were surrounded by the wealthiest people in the city. It didn't matter that she was just a waitress from a small town. With Liam, it felt like none of that mattered. They moved around the room, and every so often, she would catch a glimpse of him looking at her in a way that made her heart flutter. She couldn't help but wonder if he felt the same way. As the evening wore on, the host took the stage, and the crowd fell silent. "We are here tonight to raise money for the next generation of artists," the host announced. "All proceeds will go to supporting young creatives who need a platform to share their work." Liam stood beside Emma, and she could feel his hand lightly brush against hers. "This is important to me," he said quietly. "I want to make a real difference." She nodded, touched by his sincerity. "I can see that. It's inspiring." Just then, the host announced that it was time for the auction to begin. The items up for bid were stunning works of art, and Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. But as the night continued, a strange feeling began to settle in the pit of her stomach. It wasn't just the wealth that surrounded her, or the fact that she was suddenly rubbing elbows with the city's elite. It was the realization that, despite everything, she was still unsure of Liam's true intentions. Who was he really? And why had he invited her to this event in the first place? The questions nagged at her, but she pushed them aside. For tonight, she would just enjoy the moment. As the night continued, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Despite the stunning surroundings, the laughter, and the endless flow of champagne, a sense of unease gnawed at her. She found herself looking around, watching the conversations between the other guests, some of them familiar faces from the art world, others strangers with an air of wealth and power. They all seemed so at ease in this high society world, and she felt out of place, like she didn't belong. But when she looked back at Liam, standing across the room talking to some important-looking people, the unease began to fade. He looked at her, his gaze soft but full of meaning. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, it felt as if the whole room disappeared, leaving just the two of them. She couldn't deny the connection they had shared since that awkward coffee date, the spark that had ignited something she wasn't sure she was ready for but couldn't ignore. Emma excused herself from the crowd, stepping outside onto the balcony for some fresh air. The cool night breeze hit her face, and she closed her eyes for a moment, trying to clear her mind. She thought about her life, the small town she came from, the diner she worked at, and her dreams that often felt just out of reach. She had worked so hard to keep her head above water, to hold on to her independence and keep from needing anyone. But here she was, in a fancy hotel, with a man who seemed to have everything, a man who had invited her into his world of privilege and opportunity. What was he really looking for? Was she just a charity case to him, a poor girl with a dream? Or was there something more to their connection? Just as she was lost in thought, Liam stepped outside to join her, his presence immediately calming the storm of thoughts in her head. "Hey, mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice warm, his smile genuine. Emma smiled back, feeling her nerves ease a little. "Of course, I could use the company." He leaned against the railing beside her, his arm brushing against hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke, just taking in the quiet of the night, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Finally, Liam broke the silence. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, his voice low. "I'm glad you came." Emma felt a rush of warmth at his words, but she couldn't stop the doubts from creeping back in. "Thanks," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I have to admit, I feel a little out of place here." Liam's eyes softened as he turned to face her. "I can understand that. But you belong here just as much as anyone else. Don't let the surroundings make you feel less than what you are." Emma was taken aback by his sincerity. She had expected him to brush off her insecurities, but instead, he seemed to genuinely understand. For a moment, she wondered if there was more to him than just the businessman or the billionaire she had assumed him to be. Maybe he wasn't just some wealthy guy looking to fulfill his own desires, maybe, just maybe, he saw something in her that she hadn't even seen in herself. "You really think that?" she asked, her voice hesitant, unsure of how to trust the emotions that were starting to stir inside her. "I do," he said, his gaze steady. "I've seen a lot of people in my life, but there's something about you, Emma. You're different. You're real. Her heart skipped a beat. I'm just a waitress, she said quietly. I'm not anything special. Liam shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. You're wrong. What you do, who you are, that's what matters. Not where you work or what you have. It's the heart you put into everything you do. And I can see that in you. Emma was silent for a long moment, her mind racing. She wasn't used to hearing these kinds of words, not from someone like Liam, someone who could have anyone he wanted. Was he saying these things because he felt sorry for her? Or did he mean them? She couldn't help but wonder if she was reading too much into it, but the way he looked at her, the way his words felt genuine, made it hard to dismiss. You're making me blush, Emma said, forcing a laugh to break the tension. Liam smiled, a mischievous glint in his eyes. I'm just speaking the truth. Before she could respond, a voice called out from behind them, pulling both of their attention away. It was one of Liam's business associates, a well-dressed man with a briefcase in hand. Liam, we need you back inside, he said, his tone urgent. Liam nodded, turning back to Emma. I have to go. But I'll be right back, okay? Emma nodded, trying to smile, but her heart was racing again. She was starting to feel the weight of everything, the expectations, the uncertainty, the way Liam had made her feel like she mattered. But she wasn't sure if she could handle it. As Liam walked back inside, Emma stayed on the balcony, taking a deep breath to calm herself. She had no idea where this was all going, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't keep pretending that this wasn't real. Something was happening, and for better or for worse, she wasn't sure she was ready for it. The night at the gala ended in a blur, and as Emma stepped out of the venue into the cool evening air, she felt a mix of emotion swirling inside her. She had been swept up in Liam's world for a few hours, a world so different from hers, and now she felt like an outsider once again. She thought about their conversation on the balcony, the way he had looked at her, the words he had spoken. For a moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, there could be something between them, something more than just a fleeting connection. But as the night wore on and she found herself alone again, those doubts crept back in. Was Liam just being kind, or was there something more to his interest in her? She didn't know what to believe anymore, and she certainly didn't know if she was ready for what might come next. A few days passed, and life went back to normal. Emma went to work at the diner, paid her bills, and tried to keep her mind busy. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that her life was on the brink of something big. Every time her phone buzzed, she found herself hoping it was Liam, even though she tried to convince herself she wasn't waiting for his messages. And then, one afternoon, the message came. Hey Emma, I've been thinking about you. There's an art exhibition I'm hosting next week, and I'd really like you to come. I'd love to see you again. The words hit her like a wave, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. An art exhibition? She had never been to anything like that before. It felt like another world, one where she didn't belong. But then she remembered the way Liam had made her feel, like she was worth more than she gave herself credit for. She couldn't say no, not when it felt like an opportunity to get closer to him, to understand who he really was. She typed a quick response. I'd love to come. Thank you for inviting me. The days leading up to the exhibition were filled with anticipation and nervous energy. Emma couldn't help but wonder what the night would be like. She didn't have anything fancy to wear, but she found an old dress in the back of her closet, one that was simple but nice enough. She did her best with her hair and makeup, feeling a bit out of her element, but determined to look her best. When the night finally came, she stood in front of her mirror, taking one last look before heading out. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this, for the world Liam inhabited, but she knew she had to go. She couldn't keep wondering what if. She needed to face it head-on. The venue was upscale, with sleek, modern decor and walls lined with beautiful works of art. It was nothing like the small galleries she was used to, and as soon as she stepped inside, she felt the weight of the difference. But then, she saw Liam. He was standing near the entrance, talking to a group of people, but but as soon as his eyes met hers, he excused himself and made his way over. "Emma, you look incredible," he said, his voice warm, and for the first time since they met, she felt a spark of something familiar in his gaze. He wasn't just being polite. He was looking at her like he truly saw her. "Thanks," she said, feeling her nerves settle just a little. "This is beautiful. I've never been to anything like this before." Liam smiled, his eyes glinting with something she couldn't quite place. "I'm glad you came. I wanted to share this with you." He gestured toward the art on the walls. "These pieces are from young artists I've been working with. It means a lot to me to support them." Emma nodded, impressed. "It's amazing what you're doing here. I can see how much it means to you." They walked through the exhibition together, talking about the art, the artists, and their shared love for creativity. Emma felt more at ease with each passing moment. For once, the crowd around them didn't matter. It was just her and Liam, talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. As the night wore on, Liam led her to a quiet corner of the room, away from the bustle of the event. He turned to her, his expression softening. "I'm glad you're here, Emma. I've really enjoyed getting to know you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure what to say, but the words that came out of her mouth were honest. "I've enjoyed getting to know you too, Liam. More than I thought I would." He smiled, his eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, everything else seemed to disappear. There was no gala, no fancy art on the walls, just the two of them standing in a quiet corner, the air between them charged with something she couldn't deny. Before she could say anything else, a voice interrupted them. It was one of Liam's business partners, a tall, well-dressed man with a briefcase in hand. "Liam, we need to talk about the auction details," the man said, pulling Liam's attention away. Liam sighed, looking at Emma apologetically. "I'm sorry, Emma. I'll be right back. Please, make yourself comfortable." As Liam walked away, Emma stood there for a moment, watching him go. She didn't know what was happening between them, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't going to walk away this time. Whatever came next, she was ready to find out. The night at the exhibition ended too soon, leaving Emma with more questions than answers. Liam had returned to the crowd, his business partner in tow, and the evening had shifted back to a formal affair. She had tried to make herself blend into the background, but the tension between her and Liam lingered, even as she smiled and nodded politely to strangers who came up to her. She couldn't help but feel like a part of the event she didn't belong to, even though Liam had made her feel special, seen. As she stood by the art pieces, her mind wandered back to their quiet conversation earlier. His words echoed in her mind: he'd really enjoyed getting to know her. But what did that mean? Was he just being kind? Or was there something more to his words, to his attention? She couldn't deny the pull between them, the way he made her feel, but at the same time, she couldn't ignore the doubts. She had spent her whole life being independent, self-reliant, and here she was, falling into something that felt too good to be true. Just as she was about to slip out of the gallery and leave the event early, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey, I'm sorry about earlier. There's a private dinner after the exhibition with some of the artists and sponsors. I'd love for you to join me, if you're up for it." The invitation felt like a lifeline. She hesitated, looking around at the grandeur of the event and then at herself in the reflection of the gallery windows. She was just a waitress from a small town, surrounded by people who could buy and sell art with a snap of their fingers. She didn't belong here, but the thought of spending more time with Liam, of being invited into his world in a more personal setting, stirred something inside her. She typed a quick response. "I'd love to join. Thanks for inviting me." The dinner was held in a private room at the back of the venue, the space intimate, dimly lit, and quiet, with only a few guests scattered around. As soon as she entered, she saw Liam across the room, already deep in conversation with a few people, but as soon as he saw her, his face lit up, and he excused himself from the group. "Emma, I'm glad you could make it," he said, his voice warm as he greeted her with a genuine smile. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. I wanted to talk to you, away from all the business and the noise. There's something I've been meaning to ask you. Emma's heart skipped a beat, her stomach fluttering. What's that? She asked, trying to sound casual, even though her nerves were getting the best of her. Liam took a breath and hesitated for just a moment. I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I feel like there's a connection here. And I don't want to rush anything, but I'd like to see where this goes, if you're open to it. Emma's mind raced as she processed his words. She wasn't sure what to say, how to respond. She had always been careful, cautious in her relationships, but there was something about Liam that made her feel like maybe it was worth taking a risk. But still, she couldn't shake the doubt that lingered in the back of her mind. Was this all just part of his charm? Was he truly interested in her, or was he just looking for something temporary, a fleeting connection? Before she could speak, Liam continued. I know this might seem fast, but I want you to know that I'm serious. I like spending time with you, Emma. And I want to get to know you better. Not just the girl who works at a diner, but the real you. His words hit her like a wave. The sincerity in his voice made her heart swell, but at the same time, it terrified her. She wasn't sure if she was ready for something more, something that could change her entire life. She had spent so long focusing on surviving, on making ends meet, that the idea of opening herself up to someone like Liam seemed overwhelming. But then she looked into his eyes, those warm, brown eyes, and something inside her shifted. Maybe it wasn't about having everything figured out. Maybe it was about trusting herself, trusting him, and taking a chance. I'm not sure what I'm ready for, she said softly, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. But I'm willing to see where this goes too. Liam smiled, his eyes lighting up with relief. That's all I'm asking for, he said. Let's take this one step at a time, together. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this world. There was something real between her and Liam, something that didn't rely on their social status or their pasts. It was just two people, connecting in a way she hadn't expected. As the evening continued, they spent the rest of the dinner talking, laughing, and getting to know each other better. The doubt still lingered in Emma's mind, but for once, she didn't feel the need to push them away. She was here, with him, in this moment, and that was enough for now. She wasn't sure what the future held, but tonight, she was ready to take the next step. No more running away. No more second-guessing. Just the two of them, seeing where this connection would lead. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam's connection grew stronger, but so did her doubts. It was clear that there was something real between them, the moments they shared felt genuine, and Liam's gestures were always thoughtful and sincere. But Emma couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she wasn't truly part of his world. He had shown her kindness, kindness that made her feel seen, valued, and cared for, but there was still a part of her that held back. Was he truly in love with her, or was she just a project for him, someone to rescue from the ordinary life she led? She had always been independent, never relying on anyone else for happiness or support. She had built her life from the ground up, one step at a time. So why did this billionaire, this man who had everything, make her feel so uncertain? One afternoon, as she was cleaning up after her shift at the diner, her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. Hey, Emma, can we talk? There's something important I need to say to you. Can we meet tonight? The word struck her hard. His tone was serious, and for a moment, she felt a wave of panic rise in her chest. What was this about? Had she done something wrong? Was he finally seeing her for who she really was and deciding that she wasn't good enough for him after all? She read the message again, then placed the phone down on the counter. Her hands trembled slightly as she wiped down the tables. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this conversation, but she knew one thing, she couldn't avoid it. She had to face whatever Liam wanted to say, even if it terrified her. That evening, she arrived at the restaurant where Liam had asked to meet. It was a small, quiet place, tucked away from the hustle and bustle of the city. When she stepped inside, she saw him right away, sitting at a corner table. His face was serious, but when he saw her, his expression softened. "Hey," he said softly, standing up to greet her. "Thanks for coming." Emma smiled nervously, her heart pounding. "Of course. What's going on, Liam? You sounded a little serious in your message." Liam motioned for her to sit down, and they both settled into the booth. There was a long pause, as if Liam was choosing his words carefully. Emma couldn't help but notice the tension in his posture, the way his hands fidgeted in his lap. "I don't know how to say this," he began, his voice quiet. "But I think you deserve to know the truth about me." Emma felt her chest tighten. She had known something was coming, but this wasn't the conversation she had imagined. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam took a deep breath and finally looked her in the eye. "I know I've been a bit elusive about my life. There's a reason for that. I'm not just a businessman or a billionaire. I'm also someone who's been through a lot, someone who has his own demons, his own baggage. I don't want you to think I'm some perfect person with a perfect life. I've made mistakes, and I don't want to hurt you by keeping things from you." Emma's mind raced. She didn't know what he was trying to say, but she could feel the weight of his words. She didn't know if she was ready for this, but she wanted to understand him, to truly know who Liam was. "You don't have to tell me everything if you're not ready," she said gently, not wanting to pressure him, but needing to know what he meant. "I just need to know if what we have is real." Liam's gaze softened, and he reached out, taking her hand across the table. "It's real, Emma. I swear it. But I have to be honest with you. There's something about my past that I've been trying to hide, something I'm not proud of. I've been running away from it, and I didn't want to bring it into our relationship. But I can't keep running." Emma's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. She wasn't sure what he was talking about, but she could see the pain in his eyes. It wasn't just about wealth or power, it was about something deeper, something that had affected him in ways she hadn't imagined. "I don't need you to be perfect, Liam," Emma said, her voice steady now. "I just need you to be honest with me. If we're going to be something more, we need to trust each other. No secrets, no walls." Liam looked at her for a long moment, his eyes filled with emotion. "You're right," he said softly. "I've been keeping a part of myself hidden, and it's not fair to you. But I want you to know, I'm willing to face it all. I want you in my life, Emma. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work between us." A weight lifted from Emma's shoulders as she listened to him speak. It wasn't just about the money, the art, or the fancy events. It was about the two of them, building something real together. She had doubts, yes, but she also knew that this, whatever it was worth fighting for. She squeezed his hand, a smile tugging at her lips. "Then let's face it together," she said, feeling the warmth between them grow stronger. Liam smiled back, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I'm glad you're with me, Emma. I really am." As they sat there, talking more openly than ever before, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges, but for the first time, she felt like she wasn't facing them alone. They were in this together, and that was all that mattered. After their conversation, Emma felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally being seen for who she truly was, not just by Liam, but by herself. The walls she had built around her heart, walls she had put up for so long to protect herself, were slowly starting to come down. But even as she felt the warmth of their connection, she couldn't shake the uncertainty that still lingered in her mind. Would this really last? Was she ready to let herself fully trust Liam, especially now that she knew more about his past? The days after their conversation were a mix of excitement and caution. Emma found herself looking forward to every moment they spent together, whether it was a quiet coffee date, a walk through the park, or an impromptu visit to the art studio she had started working at. Liam was always there, always supportive, always listening. It felt different from anything she had ever experienced. He wasn't just the rich businessman with a glamorous life, he was someone who genuinely cared about her dreams, her ambitions, and her heart. And yet, there were still moments when Emma felt a pang of doubt, a whisper of fear that perhaps she was just another chapter in his life, not the story he was truly looking for. One evening, as they were having dinner at a small, cozy restaurant, Liam looked at her with a serious expression, his eyes soft but filled with something she couldn't quite place. "Emma," he began, his voice low and steady. "There's something I've been thinking about, something I want to share with you. I think it's time I tell you more about the past I've been hiding." Emma put her fork down, her heart racing. She hadn't expected this conversation tonight. She had hoped that, maybe, they could just keep moving forward without having to look back, but she knew it was inevitable. She needed to know, just as much as he needed to say it. "Liam, you don't have to do this," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth and understanding. "If you're not ready, I understand. But if you are, I'm here." He took a deep breath, his eyes searching hers for a moment. "I know I've been distant about this, and I don't want to hide anymore. I've made a lot of mistakes in my past, things I'm not proud of. My family has always expected so much from me, and I've always been the one to try and meet those expectations, to live up to the image they wanted me to portray. But it's never really been who I am, not deep down." Emma listened closely, her heart aching as she saw the vulnerability in his eyes, the raw honesty he was offering her. "I don't want to be the person they wanted me to be anymore," Liam continued, his voice thick with emotion. "And I don't want to bring any of that baggage into what we have. I want you to know me, the real me, not the version everyone else sees." Emma's hand instinctively reached out across the table, gently covering his. She didn't need him to explain everything. She could see the struggle in his eyes, the pain of trying to meet the expectations of people who didn't understand him. She had been there herself, trying to meet expectations, trying to please everyone, only to realize that it never worked. "I already know the real you, Liam," Emma said softly, her voice filled with sincerity. "The man I've come to care about is the one who shows up every day, the one who's kind and thoughtful and wants to make a difference. That's who you are to me." Liam's eyes softened, and he let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "You really mean that?" "I do," Emma said, nodding. "I'm not perfect either. I've had my own struggles, my own fears. But I don't want to live in the past anymore. I want to move forward with you, if you'll let me." Liam's face lit up with relief, and he smiled at her, his hand squeezing hers gently. "Thank you, Emma. I'm so grateful to have you in my life." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter and conversation. Emma felt lighter than she had in weeks, as if the burden of uncertainty had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, she was ready to embrace whatever the future held for her and Liam. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that this, what they had, was worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, they could build something beautiful together, something that wasn't weighed down by their pasts but instead, was built on the trust and love they were starting to cultivate. As they walked out of the restaurant hand in hand, Emma looked up at Liam and smiled. She was no longer afraid of what might come next. She was ready for this journey, with him, by her side. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam's relationship deepened in ways neither of them had expected. The initial hesitations and doubts that had filled Emma's heart slowly faded, replaced by a sense of comfort and trust she hadn't felt in years. They spent more time together, whether it was walking through the city, visiting local art galleries, or simply enjoying quiet dinners where they could talk about their hopes, dreams, and the things that made them both vulnerable. It was in these moments that Emma realized just how much she had been holding back from her own life, afraid to truly live and be seen. But with Liam, it felt different. He didn't just see her as the waitress who was trying to make ends meet, he saw her as the artist she had always dreamed of being, the person she wanted to become. It wasn't just about him giving her opportunities, it was about how he made her believe in herself. Liam was a constant presence in her life, steady and unwavering, and with every passing day, Emma found herself falling more and more for him. But even as their bond grew stronger, Emma knew they had to face the truth about their future. Could they truly build a life together, or were they just two people who had shared a beautiful moment in time, destined to part ways when reality came knocking? Emma didn't have the answers, but she was ready to find out. One evening, as they sat together in a quiet park, the air warm and the stars shining above, Liam turned to Emma with a look she hadn't seen before. There was something different about him, something that made her heart skip a beat. "Emma," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight she wasn't used to hearing. "I've been thinking about us. About everything. And I want to be honest with you." Emma's heart pounded in her chest, the air suddenly feeling thicker around them. "What is it, Liam?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam reached for her hand, his fingers brushing against hers gently. "I know we've both had our share of doubts and fears, but I'm ready to take that next step. I want to build a future with you, Emma. Not just the fun moments we share, but the real stuff, the hard stuff. I want us to face everything together, no matter what comes our way." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't been expecting this, hadn't been sure that he felt the same way. But now that the words were out in the open, she couldn't help but feel a rush of emotions flood through her. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I mean, I'm not perfect. And neither are you. We're both coming from different worlds, and I'm scared. Scared that one day, we'll realize that we can't make it work." Liam squeezed her hand, his eyes locking with hers. "I'm sure. I don't want anyone else, Emma. You're the one I want to build a life with. I know it won't always be easy, but I believe in us. I believe in you." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she looked at him. In that moment, she realized that everything they had shared, all the uncertainty and fear, had led them to this point. They had both taken risks, both opened their hearts in ways that were terrifying, but now they stood on the edge of something beautiful. "I want that too," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I want to take that next step with you." Liam smiled, his face lighting up with a joy that Emma couldn't ignore. "Then let's do it. Let's face everything together. Because I know that we're stronger than anything that comes our way." They sat there, holding hands under the stars, knowing that the future was uncertain, but for the first time, they weren't afraid of it. Together, they had built something real, a love that was rooted in trust, in honesty, and in the willingness to take chances. And as the night sky stretched above them, they both knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The next chapter of their lives had just begun, and Emma was ready for it, ready for whatever the future held. Because she no longer had to face it alone. In this emotional and heartwarming story, a woman embarks on a transformative journey after meeting a billionaire who changes her life. Filled with trust, vulnerability, and love, this tale explores themes of self-doubt, emotional healing, and finding love where it's least expected. As Emma, a waitress with big dreams, crosses paths with Liam, a successful millionaire, she begins to question her beliefs about herself and the world she's always known. Through a series of intimate moments and revelations, both characters must confront their fears, their pasts, and their future together. If you're a fan of millionaire stories, this journey of love, emotional growth, and overcoming insecurities will resonate deeply. As Emma faces the challenges of navigating her new reality with Liam, she learns to trust herself, accept vulnerability, and embrace the possibility of a life she once thought was out of reach. This story is one of those unforgettable millionaire stories where the characters evolve, find deeper connections, and realize the power of true love. With every twist and turn, Emma and Liam's story proves that millionaire stories aren't just about wealth, but about real connections that go beyond material success. This captivating journey of love, trust, and healing will stay with you long after the last page. Discover how true love can change everything in this heartwarming narrative that proves not all millionaire stories are about money, but about what truly matters in life. 1. A cinematic scene in a dimly lit, elegant ballroom filled with soft golden lighting. The male protagonist, dressed in a tailored black suit, stands close to the female protagonist, who is in a soft blue gown. Their eyes lock in a moment of intense connection. The man's hand gently holds her face, his expression a mix of warmth and vulnerability. She looks up at him, her eyes wide with emotion, her lips slightly parted as if she's on the verge of speaking but is instead lost in the moment. The lighting around them blurs, focusing solely on their tender interaction, creating a powerful, intimate atmosphere. The scene conveys deep emotional tension and the undeniable chemistry between them.